Young Katie was shy. I was just very reserved. I was a tomboy. I loved, hanging with the boys, being in the dirt, doing all the things. And yeah, I just kind of transformed into the woman I think I was supposed to be. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Didn't have a vision that that's what I wanted to do. And that's mainly because I grew up in entrepreneurism. So for me, it was very much, you always want what you don't have. So for me, I just kind of stayed away from it, always had the family that was traveling, and I grew up in the chaos of the ways of entrepreneurism. So I always wanted what my friends had, which was, come home, cook dinner, go to soccer practice, have that normal 9-to-5 life. And when I first went into the workforce, I was a server. And I just remember saying, I think I've just become an entrepreneur. Like, serving is the one job where you might get a paycheck, but however well you are is what you're gonna make at the end of the night. It was almost like a midlife crisis at a very young age, because it was like, what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna be? And I quickly realized, well, no. I watched my family have all different types of businesses, sell all different types of businesses. And that's when the serial entrepreneurism started to click in my head. So we started at a farmer's booth market. It was nothing fancy, Bristol board sign. I was 19 years old, and I started selling CBD and e-cigarettes in the vape industry. And that was right when vaping just came out. I didn't know really honestly what I was doing at all. I just knew that it was a market to go into, people were buying it, and at the farmer's booth market I was at, no one was selling it. And I started to realize I can make a lot of money here and stop serving. That was probably the first click in your head at 19, right? I don't want to do the serving anymore, so let's get rid of that job. How much could I get out of this little stand to open my first store, essentially is what I was doing. And then I just ecosystemed everything. So I made the product, I made the juice, I made the CBD. I started just getting all my products, and you have to scale that slowly. There's definitely lessons in between for sure, because I went too fast. I was too young, opened my third store, and it was a complete disaster. We had to shut it down and repivot and move to the next locations. The easiest way to explain me is when I go in somewhere, I see holes in buckets. So I can never identify, which I did. We can go back to my family. I do relate to my family in that sense. I can't tell you what I'm gonna do a year from now, 5 years now, 10 years from now, I don't know. It's whenever the opportunity or the idea comes into my head, that's when I run with it, and I either start the business, buy the business, find the business. So people need to understand with risk and fear that you have to keep going back to that child mentality. With parents, right? When a kid's on the couch and they're jumping across the couch, parents are always putting their hands out being like, watch the coffee table, watch the corners, watch the edges, right? And I grew up where my mom really honestly, unless it was a burning hot pan, like something life or death, she wouldn't put her hands out. She'd be like, Katie, we'll learn. So because I had that kind of mentality growing up, I think that played a big part into entrepreneurism. And I always say that back then I took way more risk than I take now. And it's because I was completely fearless. Because I think I'm going into it and I'm thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? I destroy my credit. Okay, I'll rebuild it. I go bankrupt. Okay, I'm 20 years old. What's the worst case, right? I went through some big health challenges, and for me, I actually tried to stay home. I think everyone in my life wanted me to stay home, and I just mentally couldn't do it. So I was very much, just let me go to work. Like, if I'm gonna die, let me die doing the thing I love. And as bold of a statement as that is, I don't even think I logically knew what was going on. And while many can say you should have stayed home, you should have done more treatments, you should have done this, you made a big risk for money, right? People could say that. For me, it was my mental sanity. And so when I coach someone, even just networking with people, if I hear excuses, I literally, my ears shut off, because I did everything I could in every circumstance to get up and go and fight. And to this day, I have a condition that puts me in bed 2 days a month. And I have my Zoom calls with my green screen on my headboard, and you never know I'm in bed. Like I'm dressed from here up, and there's no excuses. Like, yes, I can't walk today. That's okay, but I'm still gonna show up. I'm still gonna do my job because people are relying on me. And when there's a will, there's a way. So I genuinely believe you either pick the excuse route or you pick the route of there is no excuses. Removing your emotion to money is huge. For myself, it's the number one thing I will work on with people. It's the number one thing I will think of when I'm having a conversation with an entrepreneur. And the thing is, we all have an emotion to money. It all stems from something. It all starts from somewhere. It's usually how you were raised. If you're married, you have to take in consideration how your partner was raised. And then when that blends together in a household, what does that look like? And you have to reset everything about money. I want to pay my house off because that's a trophy in certain cultures, right? To know that your house is paid off. It's little things like that that affect your decisions in business. And if you have that save mentality as well, that's going to project into everything you do. So let's say you own a brick and mortar store and you're like, I want to add in this vertical, this product I want to add in my store. Well, if you look at the bank and you're like, well, we could probably do it, but probably not, your brain is instantly thinking that, and that's what it's going to become. So you're acting out of your emotion to money when you do that. You could have added that product in a month earlier and had 10 times the sales revenue, but you didn't because you have some sort of history with money. And at the end of the day, everyone says money doesn't bring happiness, money this, money that. It is. Money is happiness because how we trade in this currency, in this world, is money. I didn't decide that. Someone else decided that. But at the end of the day, it is money. So we have to remove that emotion so that we can play with money, use money, receive money, and reset our mental thought about it. Time management will make or break you as an entrepreneur for sure. It's probably one of my favorite ones. I struggled with it. I still to this day struggle with it because I'll sometimes let a meeting go too far. But if you need to build a website and it's going to take you 2 hours and you don't have that 2-hour time slot, you should be outsourcing that. If you can't fit it in 15 minutes, then it's not a task you should be doing. Obviously that depends the level the entrepreneur is at, but a lot of the time people will just revert back to the control of, if I can do it myself, then I'm gonna do it. And it's the reversed way that you should be doing it. It should be short increments. So I've had probably 2 or 3 pivotal people come into my life. One has completely changed my life. When you network with people, for example, if someone sends you a DM on Instagram and they don't even follow you, you're already doing the wrong ways of networking. There's just social cues in networking. But that's the same thing in the real world. If you walk up to me and you're instantly gonna talk about money, how we're gonna work together, yada, 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 I instantly know you're in this short-term game. You're not in this long-term game. And when you meet those one handshakes that change your life, it's because you made an impression on a long-term game. Literally, your relationships are your bank balance. That's what it comes down to. So how many relationships you have is how much money you have. And how well you nurture those relationships is how well this keeps growing. So you can make a lot of wealth with a few relationships and then sit there, but are you going to continue to keep nurturing those relationships so you can keep growing? It's a pet peeve of mine when coaches don't have coaches also, but you need a coach in everything you do in your life. You need a coach for fitness. You need a coach for, if you want to be the next NHL star, you're going to have a hockey coach. You're going to have coaches for all things, so why is business different? But it's not even having just one business coach. It's having a real estate coach, a marketing coach, sales coach, sales training, making sure that you're getting the information from the top experts at what they do. For the most part, on online coaches and all these things we see, they haven't actually succeeded in something. They're just really good at marketing. I didn't want to be a coach for that exact reason. I didn't want to be seen as a coach. It's a taboo word. And I was always just under the radar doing what I did. So for me, when I went into coaching, knowing I wanted to help people, it was my coach who convinced me to do that. And now it's the best decision I ever did. I love coaching people, but it took that kind of switch for me, and it took a coach telling me that in order to do it. I think a lot of where my strength comes from is my failures, and it's how I got out of the failures. Every time I got down, I got back up. Whether it was a money thing, whether it was a business thing, whether it was someone backstabbed me in business, I always got back up, and that was my biggest strength. So to look at life the way I look at life, it's genuinely because I know you really cannot take me down unless you literally took me down. It wouldn't happen on my own. When I meet successful people, I want to know how they failed. Because I can Google your win, I can learn about your win, that's great. And for a lot of us, we get lucky in some of the things we do. It's just we're persistent and consistent. And so when that luck comes in and being persistent and consistent, suddenly we have massive success. But how did you pivot out of all the failures and mentally pivot? Those are the things I want to learn from the people above me. Even if I invest in someone's deal and I know it's their first real estate deal, it's just the impact that's behind that, that's changing someone else's family while growing my wealth, but there's always an impact level there. So for me, it comes down to the impact of others while just making myself happy in the process.